Watch how Keir Starmer faces mounting fury in the Commons as relentless questioning over the Mandelson scandal turns PMQs into pure chaos. What begins as a straightforward line of inquiry quickly spirals into a storm of frustration as MPs from across the House accuse the Prime Minister of dodging, deflecting and refusing to give a straight answer. Even seasoned figures like Nigel Farage step in, piling pressure on a leader who appears increasingly cornered. Is this political strategy or a sign of something deeper being hidden? Before we continue, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to Britain Daily. It's completely free and it helps us keep bringing you the hard-hitting stories that matter. Let's watch this explosive clip.
Andrew Snowden.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Every week the Prime Minister comes here and reads out this pre-scripted nonsense that bears no resemblance to the questions he's actually asked. The Leader of the Opposition asked him about Peter Mandelson and he answered about the war in Iran. The Leader of the Opposition asked him about Mandelson again and he answered with an attack on the Shadow Justice Secretary. He was asked about Mandelson again and talked about protests in London. What is he scared of? What is he hiding? For a man who has spent years presenting himself as a forensic investigator, he has certainly had a blind spot to the details for this convicted paedophile with a friend in high Labour places. So I shall ask him again. When he found out that Lord Mandelson had an ongoing relationship with the convicted paedophile Jeffrey Epstein, did he speak to him personally before appointing him ambassador to the United States?
Mr. Speaker, we've set out the process. It is being put before the House. But I know why they don't want to. They don't want to talk about the war because they supported going into the war without thinking through the consequences. That is a huge error of judgment. I realise they don't want to talk about it ever again. I'm not surprised. Nor do they want to talk about the Shadow Justice Secretary saying that Muslims are not welcome to prayer in Trafalgar Square. She should remove him from their front bench, or I suspect he'll be up there next on that trail.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I spent 20 years as a secondary school teacher in Wales. We worked hard. Labour has given them the biggest upgrade of rights in a generation. Rights that millions of us fought hard to win. But the honourable member for Clacton wants to chuck it all in the bin. Does the Prime Minister stand by these rights and agree that only a vote for Labour in May will enshrine these fundamental workers' rights?
Mr. Speaker, I'm very proud of our Employment Rights Act. It delivers strong rights and protections, including for all our brilliant school staff. And reform, he's right, would rip up those protections. They have nothing to offer but grievance and division. And, Mr. Speaker, they have no judgment, because just like the Leader of the Opposition, the member for Clacton said we should do all we can to support the US strikes, and he said, I make that perfectly clear. It was perfectly clear. He got it completely wrong, and perfectly clear that he's now desperately trying to U-turn. Absolutely no judgment, not fit to be Prime Minister.
Nigel Farage. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Over the course of the last year, our North Sea neighbours, Norway, have opened 49 drill sites for gas and oil. On our side of the North Sea, the number is 0. Given that our critical reserve of natural gas is down to 2 days and how vulnerable we are, and with talk potentially of energy rationing coming later this year, isn't it time we change course, got rid of excessive taxation on the exploration companies, opened up the licences, became self-sufficient in natural gas, and with that would come thousands of jobs, increased tax revenues and cheaper gas prices? Isn't it time we followed Norway?
Mr. Speaker, oil and gas will be part of the mix of our energy for many, many years to come, as I've set out many, many times. But he's now highlighting the consequences of the war that he said we should rush into. He wanted us to go to war. He said it was perfectly clear that we should support the strikes. Then, just like the Leader of the Opposition, a week later, he said, oh, no, I got that one wrong. You can't make mistakes about decisions as serious as committing to war. It's a gross error.
Point of order, Sir Julian Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You have clearly explained that you are not responsible for the quality or lack of it in a minister's answers or even a Prime Minister's answers. But can you explain for the benefit of the House and the viewing public what Prime Minister's questions is supposed to be about? Namely, that the opposition and other honourable and right honourable members get to ask the Prime Minister a question about a subject of their choice. It is not a matter for him then to berate them for not asking a question about a completely different subject that he wishes had been asked.
Can I just say, a long-standing member that came in with me in 1997 knows that that is not a point of order. Paul Holmes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Further to that point of order, notwithstanding the rulings that you have made in the chair, which I think are always perfect and completely right, can I ask, Mr. Speaker, we are now entering a new period where a Prime Minister answers a question about a subject that wasn't asked and then focuses asking a question on the opposition front bench. So, notwithstanding the ruling that you've just made to my right honourable friend, can you give me the options as to the parliamentary mechanisms and who I can approach to see whether there needs to be reform in the standing orders to actually give you the power to be able to determine what is an answer to a question and what is a completely pathetic...
Can I just say, there is a real weakness in that, because there is an assumption that the person knows the answer. I will leave it at that. Don Buffer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You're also not responsible, Mr. Speaker, for the questions asked. The leader of the opposition said that it was British values to attack Muslims praying. I just wondered, Mr. Speaker, if that brings this House into disrepute in regards to British values.
Can I just say, look, it's an important point that we need tolerance. And what I would say is about respecting each other. And what I would say is, you put your point on the record, but I'm not going to enter into a debate. And I will leave it at that for the moment. Point of order, Sir John Hayes.
Further to the point made by my honourable friend, notwithstanding your ruling, Mr. Speaker, Erskine May makes it clear, does it not? The ministers come to the House to answer questions. And whilst the standing orders may need refining, they already make clear that that is the purpose of the sessions we have daily, and indeed in the case of the Prime Minister weekly. Is it not, Mr. Speaker?
Sir John, can I just say, you're just continuing a debate that I think I've already given the answers to. I think we'll leave it at that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. In January of last year, I raised with the Prime Minister the issue of inadequate and inaccessible compensation for those injured by COVID vaccinations. The Prime Minister undertook to look into it along with the Health Secretary, but I'm afraid that more than a year later, no significant progress has been made. Now, I know that the Prime Minister and the Government recognise the risk this issue poses to public confidence in mass vaccination, all the more important given the Prime Minister's opening remarks in this session, and indeed the pain it's caused to those who've been injured or lost loved ones only doing what their government asked them to do. So can I ask the Prime Minister please to re-engage with this issue and ensure that his government makes swift progress now in resolving it?
Prime Minister.
Can I thank him for raising it, acknowledge the question he asked me last year in relation to this, and actually pay tribute to him and to Kate for her campaign. It's vital that we look closely at the rare and tragic cases where things went wrong. We mustn't fail to do so, because that will maintain confidence in our health service. Important in relation to COVID, of course, but important, as he rightly points out, today as well. We are committed to looking at reforms to the vaccine damage payment scheme and engaging with those affected to make sure it meets their needs. Specifically, we expect the fourth module of the COVID inquiry to report next month, which will look specifically at the issue that he has raised. And I can reassure him we'll look at other recommendations very closely.
What you've just seen wasn't just another noisy session in Parliament. It was a moment that exposed the growing tension between accountability and political deflection at the highest level of government. The repeated questioning over the Mandelson appointment wasn't complicated. It was direct, specific and focused. And yet, despite being asked again and again, it never received a clear, direct answer. That's what sparked the fury you witnessed. It wasn't just opposition MPs trying to score points. It was a wider sense across the Commons that something fundamental was being avoided. When MPs begin openly questioning the very purpose of Prime Minister's questions, you know something unusual is happening. PMQs is supposed to be a space where the Prime Minister is held accountable, where questions are met with answers, not sidesteps. Kemi Badenoch's approach was relentless. She didn't allow the focus to drift. Each time the Prime Minister attempted to pivot to Iran, to opposition figures, to unrelated issues, she pulled it straight back to the central question. That persistence is what defined this exchange, and it's what made the lack of a clear response so noticeable to everyone watching. Then came the wider reaction. Nigel Farage and other MPs entering the debate only amplified the pressure. The discussion moved beyond one issue and turned into a broader critique of leadership and priorities. Questions about energy, national security and economic stability were raised, but even then, the shadow of that unanswered Mandelson question lingered over everything. Perhaps the most striking part of this entire session was the visible frustration from MPs themselves. Points of order, procedural challenges and direct appeals to the Speaker all pointed to one thing: a breakdown in the expected flow of accountability. When MPs start debating whether questions are even being answered properly, it signals a deeper issue within parliamentary exchange. For viewers at home, moments like this are more than just political theatre. They shape public perception, they influence trust, and they raise important questions about how leadership is exercised under pressure. Is avoiding a question a strategic move to control the narrative? Or does it risk undermining confidence in the very system designed to ensure transparency? At the same time, it's important to recognise that politics is rarely simple. Every answer, or lack of one, exists within a wider context of strategy, messaging and pressure. But in a chamber like the Commons, clarity matters. Directness matters. Because ultimately, these exchanges are not just for MPs, they're for the public watching closely. So now it turns to you. What did you make of this moment? Was this a calculated political tactic from the Prime Minister, or did it cross a line into outright avoidance? And do you think moments like this damage public trust in government? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We read every single one. And if you found this breakdown insightful, don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Finally, make sure you subscribe to Britain Daily. It's completely free and it helps us continue bringing you the most explosive, unfiltered moments from Parliament every single week. Stay informed, stay engaged, and we'll see you in the next one.